Hey everyone, it's Myriam and welcome back to another video. So I apologize in advance for the slightly echoey sound in this voiceover. I'm back home in France and I have to record this in my living room and it's quite echoey. So I hope you guys don't mind that. The sound will be back to normal next week. So this week I wanted to introduce you guys to a little exercise I designed for myself a few months back to practice skin tones and faces and heads. They're not things I'm particularly comfortable doing. I feel like I need to get more used to painting them, and so I created this little exercise for myself where I paint a portrait from reference every day in gouache, and I limit myself to 20 to 30 minutes per portrait. I started this exercise back in September and I was intending on doing it for as long as I possibly could, but then Inktober came in and then I went back to work and it just became difficult for me to fit it in every single day. But the ones that you see in this video are the ones I did back in September. It was my first week of trying that exercise, and this portrait I believe was the very first one I started. So I've now gone back to having more time to painting during the day, so it's an exercise I really want to pick up again and do more regularly to try and see if it helps me improve, and I'll keep you guys updated. There'll be similar videos in the future where I'll do little compilations of my favorites of the week or the month or things like that, so every so often you'll have a similar video to this if you guys enjoy it. If you also would like to see them on a slightly more regular basis with the reference pictures and a 2-minute time lapse of one particular painting, I sometimes upload them to my Patreon as a little bonus reward. It's not very regular, but it does happen, so if you're interested in seeing that more in detail, the link is in the description below. So if any of you guys have seen my video I uploaded a few months ago where I practiced painting light in gouache, in that particular video I did those studies with a time restriction. I intentionally restricted the amount of time I had to study the reference picture and paint it, because it helped me go to the essential elements, to exactly what made the light look like light, instead of focusing too much on details. And that is basically the same concept here. I limit myself to 20 to 30 minutes. There was more 30 minutes in this video in particular. Now that I've come back to the exercise nowadays, it's more like 20 minutes. I restrict myself to that amount of time because it's just enough time that I know I can get something down on paper, given because I'm familiar with kind of my skill level at this point, but I also know that it's not quite enough time for me to go into too much detail, and so it helps me learn self-control in one sense, and also it forces my brain to focus on the essentials in my reference pictures, the thing that make the character in this situation look like himself, and the things that show what kind of volumes there are, what kind of colors there are. It just forces me not to dwell on details, because it is something I've noticed I do too much and I want to get out of that habit, and I tend to do that way too much when I have a lot more time to paint something, and especially when it comes to my bigger pieces. I've noticed that one of the big detriments to my way of working is the fact that I go into the details too quickly, and I neglect, maybe to some extent, the bigger forms, the bigger elements, the base, basically the ground that you should be able to get right first. Because if you don't get your base right first, your details will not help, really. If the first base is wrong, it's like a sculpture. If you get the basic forms wrong, the details will not help make the sculpture look better, and I think it's a similar concept in painting. Oh, and before I forget, obviously all my materials and supplies are always listed in the description below if you guys are interested in any of the things I use in my videos, but I'm using a little sketchbook in here that I've had for years and years and years and never actually got around to finishing, and I don't like that. I don't like not finishing things. Even if I don't enjoy the sketchbook, I'll try my best to find a way to enjoy it, and this one is a handbook by Global Art Materials. It's a little kind of square A5 kind of size of sketchbook, a bit bigger than A5 maybe, and the paper isn't isn't the most fantastic one to paint on. It does kind of warp a little, but because I'm using gouache, I'm not using too much paper, so it's too much water, so it actually withstands it pretty well, and it's a good format. Something else I'm trying to train myself to do is be able to understand the boundaries of my paper and not actually go too far outside of the boundaries of it, because I often have that problem when I'm life drawing. I start drawing way too big, and I just need to get myself used to whatever format I choose to draw on that day. And I've never really used a square sketchbook and one that's that small, so I thought it would be a good practice to paint in it, and also it would help me fill it, and the paper seems to withstand the paint quite well. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any experience with that brand. I've never had it before. I don't even remember where I got that sketchbook. It might have been gifted to me, but it's a good little sketchbook for this kind of exercise. For those kind of studies where, for example, as I do live drawing every day, also for exercises where I know there is quite a big chance I won't be satisfied with the end result, or I do very quick exercising, things where I don't feel as polished, I'm always wary of using a really nice sketchbook. I want to use sketchbooks that I'm less comfortable with, because it usually means that I don't mind, and I'm sure a lot of you are similar because I hear that a lot. It just means that I don't mind messing up or experimenting. I'm not as scared of kind of ruining the paper, and oddly enough, the less scared I am about ruining something, the less likely it becomes that I will, because I think you often ruin something because we're too tense, and if you're too tense, you don't tend to kind of give in to the flow of your creativity. You just tend to second guess every choice you make, and second guess what it looks like, and just second guess everything and overthink everything, and I'm just naturally very, very good at that anyway. So I mean, it expands tenfold when I get creative and when I draw. So one of the tools I use to help me study more efficiently is using things that I'm not worried to ruin, because it means I can loosen up a lot more easily. So yeah, I believe there are 5 paintings in this particular video. The one you saw just before the ones I'm starting right now, the one before the one on the screen, was my least favorite, and the one that you see right now is my most favorite. I could really feel myself starting to improve by the end of the week, even after just 1 week of doing the exercise, and I was starting to not only become more comfortable with shadows and lighting on a face, the different planes of a face, but I was becoming more comfortable with gouache itself. And if you've been following me for a little while, you probably have heard me talking about how I like the brush strokey look, the not blended kind of look with gouache, and that is still something that I'm struggling to achieve, and especially in September. Now I'm a bit more comfortable with it, but back in September I was even less comfortable with it than I might be now, and so I had to make a conscious effort not to try and blend things. And so this painting for me was the start of something. This particular portrait, I was really, really happy with the look of the brushstrokes, and I felt like I was getting somewhere, and it's the painting that made me feel like this exercise was starting to feel really kind of real and beneficial to me. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. I hope you guys will want to see more of it. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see this kind of video every so often, with a little compilations of my portraits of the day. And again, don't forget to check out my Patreon if you would like to see more of them, with the reference pictures and little time-lapse of each particular painting. And yeah, stay tuned for next week, because I'll have another sketchbook tour for you next week of my watercolor moleskin sketchbook. And in the meantime, I hope you guys are all really, really well. Take really good care of yourselves, and I'll see you very soon. Bye everyone.